So you're getting a large 7-seat SUV, and Toyota is clearly high on your look list. But should you get a new Kluger or the Prado? What's the difference? Do you need a proper four-wheel drive LandCruiser? And how will you fare with a hybrid Kluger? All your questions and more are about to be answered. I've already test driven both of these cars for 7 days. I actually went on a very long road trip in the Prado, while the Kluger got to stay in suburbia. And we are about to go into which car will suit you better. For reference, the Kluger is the top of the range hybrid model and costs around 75 grand, while the LandCruiser is the top of the range Prado Kakadu and costs around 87 grand. So it's a good $12,000 more. Is it worth it? Let's find out. These cars do look quite different. The Kluger has had a proper makeover, so it does look more modern than the Prado, which has a very macho, very traditional four-wheel drive design. But let's look at them more closely.
To be honest, when I first saw it, I didn't think it looked that different to the old Kluger. It's still big and beefy with a lot of brawn going on, but it does look more like the RAV4 this time. It's got those angles going up at the back, it's got a fancy new grille on the front, and I think you'll be pleased with this one. Inside, because this is the top of the range, it really does feel quite premium in here, especially in the cream leather upholstery. It's definitely more luxe than the last Kluger I was in. The seats are heated and ventilated. There's a leather steering wheel. The center console is nicely designed with some faux wooden accents. And while it lacks the gloss of its rivals, it really does feel good for a Toyota. You get some soft touch surfaces with external stitching, which looks really nice in this car, and there is a sunroof too. The design up here is still very old school Toyota though. It's got a lot more buttons and it's less streamlined than you'll see on some newer competitors. The multimedia system feels small for this size car. It's 8 inches, though it does have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, so you can instantly sync up to Google Maps and Spotify for easy tech on the road. It also comes with an 11-speaker JBL stereo on this model. For storage, there are 2 cup holders in the front. You get a nice deep storage space here for phone, keys. It doesn't have a wireless charger though. You also get 2 extra shelves that are nicely textured over here and one on the passenger seat, plus a really giant center storage bin. Like I can lose my hand in here. And there are bottle holders in each door. The exterior of the Prado explains its purpose. It is a muscled up hunk of machinery that you really can take most places. Kind of like the car version of Channing Tatum, but not quite as good looking. It positively screams strength and still sports a very square shape that actually suits this car. As this is the top spec, it looks much more luxe than you'd expect from a large four-wheel drive. It's got leather accented seats that are heated and cooling and power adjustable in the front, plus a premium steering wheel with a wood accent that I can attest feels quite comfortable even when driving it for hours. There is a modern center console area with buttons that actually make sense and are not confusing. But most importantly, the 9-inch multimedia screen is integrated nicely into the dash, and it's finally got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a big move for the LandCruiser. This makes such a difference when you're on a long road trip because you can so easily navigate with maps, and then you can alternate between listening to podcasts and movies or books, whatever you want to listen to via your streaming app. I went away in January this year in a car that didn't have CarPlay, and it was extremely frustrating because I knew how easy the tech could be. It's been Toyota's only sticking point in previous models, and now that the Prado has it, it's a big deal. Also in front, you will find 2 cup holders plus a small slot for your phone, another small storage area here for keys, and in here is quite a large center storage bin that is also cooled, which we found really handy because we could keep snacks for the kids cold in here. It was quite amazing on a long road trip.
As far as design goes, the Kluger scores higher with its revamped exterior and more modern interior. The Prado essentially looks like the Prado always has, so design-wise, the Kluger comes out on top. On to interior space, which is an important factor when buying large cars because that's one of the main reasons you're looking at them. Kluger first.
There is loads of interior space in the Kluger, plenty of legroom, plenty of headroom, and lots of space in between the driver and front passenger as well, so you don't feel cramped. Rear passengers will be perfectly comfortable back here. My two children are aged 7 and 9, and they were so happy in here. We drove a few of their friends around this week, and they fit in here and in the third row. I'm 161 centimetres or 5'3", and this is me behind a taller person's driving position, so taller adults, taller teenagers will be so happy in here. Rear passengers will get 2 cup holders in the centre armrest. They get their own climate control on this model. You'll get bottle holders in each door, plus both rows of rear passengers will be able to see this screen. Into the third row, and there is less space, but that is fairly standard for a 7-seat SUV. As far as space goes, it is still comfortable. I can fit fine back here. We had kids in here this week. They didn't complain either. And you can actually move this second row forward so you can create more space if you need it. Third row passengers get 4 cup holders back here, plus their own directional air vents. And boot size is excellent for this category. With all 3 rows in use, you get 241 litres of space, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually a lot more room than you're used to in a 7-seat SUV. And we fit 2 suitcases standing up in here. With the third row down, the boot opens up to 552 litres of space. We fit 3 suitcases in here. You'll get a double pram in here. And if you've got sporting equipment to carry around, no problem.
And into the Prado Kakadu.
Space in the front is good. There is enough leg and headroom, even for tall people, to sit for hours on end, and it feels very spacious inside the cabin. My children aged 7 and 9 really set up camp in here. There is loads of space. They could fit themselves, a large backpack each full of their stuff for the road, all of their entertainment. They had a snack bag each. They used the cup holders in here to house their drinks. And in here they popped their iPads and puzzle books. One thing that is lacking is the number of USB ports. So there is 1 USB port in the front and that's it, but there are 2 12 volters. So you can put an adapter in there and use those to charge your devices. There is also tri-zone climate control, which my kids loved, just so that they could set their own temperature. My kids were so excited to find out that this car had a screen in the back, especially because we were going away. Unfortunately, we didn't get a chance to use it because we don't have any DVDs, but if it were our car and we were organised, I'm sure we'd have DVDs and they would have taken full advantage. There is a third row in this Prado, which is such a great idea because even if you don't have more children, which obviously you need it if you do have more children, but even if you don't, it's always a good thing to be able to drive other kids around to sporting activities, etc. sometimes. It's spacious as far as third rows go, and back here you will find directional air vents plus 2 cup holders. With the third row in use, you'll get 104 litres of space, which is enough for some school bags or some grocery bags, not much space. With the third row down, which is how I used it, we've managed to fit in 2 weeks worth of gear. So it included everything from suitcases to beach bags and esky, some inflatables. Don't judge me on my packing skills. This photo was taken on our 3rd overnighter mid-trip. You'll also easily get in a double pram.
So both cars will take 7 passengers comfortably, and the boot space is very similar with the third row down, but with the third row up, the Prado's boot is smaller, and then you also have that awful side swing tailgate to contend with. But how do they drive? And this is where they differ the most. The Kluger, this model anyway, is a hybrid, while the Prado Kakadu has a 2.8 litre diesel engine. Let's have a look in more detail. Kluger first.
It's been a few years since I've driven a Kluger, and my one takeaway memory from that a few years ago was how heavy it was to drive around. But this new version with the hybrid motor has really taken that away, and it's almost quick off the mark, which is saying something for a large 7-seat SUV, and it feels a lot lighter to drive around. It also makes it feel much more nimble on the road and a lot smoother as well. This Kluger Grande Hybrid is an all-wheel drive, which will give you better traction on unstable surfaces. It gets up hills nice and easily, and you can overtake cars super well on highways. Even parking isn't really an issue considering its size. The steering wheel turns nice and easily, and you get a decent reverse parking camera to help you out with a 360-degree camera as well. The official combined fuel consumption figure is 5.6 litres per 100 Ks, and I've averaged 6.9 litres per 100 Ks doing mostly suburban driving, which is still really good for a large 7-seat SUV.
The Prado is driven mostly on highways, as I drove from Sydney to Byron in it. Here's how it fared.
Driving on the open road is a lot different to driving around suburbia, but the Prado Kakadu handles both quite well. It's got a 2.8 litre turbo diesel engine, so it has enough power to get up hills easily, and you can also overtake perfectly fine when you're on highways. I found it travelled best when it was in Sport S Plus mode. It was a lot smoother when it was in this mode on long highways. And if it wasn't in that mode, it felt a little bit unsure of itself. So when you're on the open road, I would definitely indulge in the Sport S Plus mode. But if you're just doing things like driving, doing the school run or going to work, you can stick to eco mode. Fuel consumption is a claimed 7.9 litres per 100 Ks, and I did an average of 10.6 litres per 100 Ks on my 2 weeks of driving. It is a 4-wheel drive, so you will get better traction on loose surfaces like gravel or dirt or snow, and there's more information on this in the adventure guide on the CarsGuide website. I do think it handles like a big car. The steering is not super refined or very precise, and it does feel quite heavy on the takeoff. It's not an extremely agile car. You get used to this the more you drive, but you always feel it when parking. It has a reverse parking camera, but it's quite low res, and some areas of the camera are blacked out. I don't know why. It's also got a 360-degree view camera, but that's also quite blurry.
So for me, the Kluger wins on driving hands down. The fact that it's a hybrid makes it light and easy to drive, while the Prado is still stuck in heavy 4-wheel drive territory. It didn't fill me with confidence while driving on the highway either, though it most likely shines when you're actually doing the 4-wheel driving it was built for. So if you're not planning to cross rivers and go up muddy tracks on a regular basis, I would say the Kluger is what you're after because it's still all-wheel drive, which is what you need for steady traction on unstable surfaces. It's not hardcore like the Prado, so it's really up to you how you're going to drive the car. Right, how safe are these two family SUVs? And are they very different? You're about to find out.
Safety is comprehensive in this model. You get auto emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection, lane departure assist, rear cross traffic alert, blind spot monitoring, and adaptive cruise control. You'll also get airbags that cover driver and front passenger, and side curtain airbags that extend to the third row, but they don't cover all of the third row occupants. So while the Kluger is a superb 5-seater family car, you might want to use those 2 seats in the back as spare seats and not have your kids in there full time. You will get 2 ISOFIX points and 3 top tether points in the second row for kids' car seats.
And the Prado?
Safety is comprehensive in the Prado Kakadu, and you get things like lane departure alert, active cruise control, rear cross traffic alert, auto emergency braking, and blind spot monitoring. There are 7 airbags in the Prado, including side curtain airbags that extend all the way to the back row, and you will get 2 ISOFIX points and 5 top tether points to fix kids' car seats in safely.
For safety, it's got to be the Prado purely because of the third row airbags. They're arguably the most important piece of safety equipment, and I wouldn't be putting my kids in the backseat of the Kluger on a long road trip because the airbags won't cover them. It's a very big deciding factor, I think, when purchasing if you have more than 3 kids and really need that last row. So who wins? The Toyota Kluger has it all over the Prado when it comes to design and style, and the driving is a much smoother experience. They're close on interior space and practicality, but the Prado comes out on top with safety because of those third row airbags. Your lifestyle is going to determine your choice between these two. If you prioritize adventure and value the added safety of full third row airbag coverage, then spending extra on the Prado Kakadu will make sense. But if you value the drive experience and are more likely to use your SUV as a 5-seater with the occasional 7-seat drive, plus you're a hybrid fan, the Kluger Grande is going to be for you.